All right, we're going to get started here in just a second. Let everybody go ahead and get logged in. Looks like we've got some people logging in real quickly. It's just at the top of the hour, so I'm sure. Oh, yep, we got quite a few people getting in right now. So we'll give it just another couple seconds. Give it about one more minute and let everybody get a chance to get logged in. Okay, we're really excited for today's webinar. So we're happy to have you guys here with us today.
I'm hearing some happy birthday there, Emma.
I did hear that. Yes, I'm running today's webinar from a builder group meeting in Birmingham, Alabama, at the hotel here at the Ross Bridge. It's a very lovely hotel. But in order to stay connected to a good connection, I need to be near the conference center and not in our meeting room. So there, as soon as I'm done introducing everybody, I'll go ahead and turn off my microphone so you won't hear any background noise once we get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to Webinar Wednesday. We're very excited to have you all here today with us. We're going to be discussing trade management. This is one of Rick's very favorite topics, building strong relationships to increase efficiency and profitability in today's market. It's essential. If you want to go ahead and switch the slides for me real quick, Rick. I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. This is being recorded, so if you'd like to come back and revisit or share with any friends or coworkers, you're welcome to do that. It will be available on the website this afternoon. And you are welcome to submit questions throughout the webinar. We ask that you put it on the Q&A bubble down there at the bottom, and then we will likely reserve all questions until the end. That just helps the flow of the webinar so that we can keep everything going properly. If you do have any questions that are related to the format of the webinar, or you're having issues with hearing anything, you can talk to me or any of our panelists directly with the chat bubble there. It's just to the right of the Q&A bubble. With that, we'll go on to our sponsor. We're so excited today to have our webinar sponsored by ECI. They have been a great support of all of our educational programming. ECI is a software solution that offers residential home builders and developers an integrated suite of cloud-based management solutions to improve profitability, reduce construction costs, shorten schedules, and increase sales. Several of their tools include Mark Systems, an industry-leading single platform, completely integrated, easy-to-use cloud-based management solution that maximizes business efficiency. Build Tools is a web-based construction project management solution designed for custom home builders and remodelers to easily manage risk and activities. Tasks and activities. LotView is a lot inventory management solution. It engages home buyers and streamlines collaboration. Their interactive site map engages home buyers on your website and drives more inquiries. Lasso is the leading CRM for home builders, real estate developers, and new home agencies, built to radically improve lead management, convert more prospects to buyers, and sell communities faster, easier, and more profitably. And finally, Bolt, one of their more recent acquisitions, is a web-based subcontractor software that provides trades in the home building industry with powerful scheduling, project management, and estimating features to simplify and streamline their businesses. So if you need anything with Mark Systems, it's a great organization. We've been working with them for years and years. Please reach out to them for any other questions. And our speaker today, Rick Maurer, who's been with us, I believe, just over a year. He's a consultant with us specifically in the purchasing processes and procedures. He has his BS in business administration and is currently working on a master's in leadership development. He's been in the home building industry for over 20 years, and 10 of those years has been in experience as a director of purchasing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our expert, Rick Maurer.
Thank you, Imogene. Welcome, everybody. Excited for today's webinar, and definitely a hot topic right now. You know, it's considering where we are with COVID and over the last year and all the challenges we've had. You know, I like to look at it whether it's good times or rough times like we're having right now in the construction industry. that trade partner relationships, manufacturer relationships are always such a critical part of what we do and something we should be focusing on all the time and always improving. Um, we're getting some senses of normal life in many ways with where we are with COVID. But from a construction industry standpoint and are dealing specifically with our trades, we all know it's nowhere near normal. We're dealing with price increase requests almost daily, labor shortages, material shortages, whatever it might be. And it's really, really important to keep the communication open. Like I said, more so than ever. So in today's presentation, I'm going to talk maybe the next 30, 40 minutes on a number of topics and then have some time at the end for some open discussion. So if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to, like Emma Jane said, to pop that into the chat box. But we're going to talk about the benefits of a strong trade partner and builder relationship, recruiting and onboarding process. This is a critical part of what we do, whether we're talking about the vendor bench, whether we're talking about how we're onboarding. We all do it all the time. We should be. But the question is, do we have a true procedure? And with that procedure, are we constantly trying to improve that and be as efficient as we can? Trade assignments. Once we get through onboarding and recruiting, how are we assigning those trades? Where are they going? What's the process we're following? And then finally, maintaining that relationship long term. What are we doing to continue, not just today, but 5 years down the road, that we continue to cultivate those relationships? So there's some of the topics we're going to talk about today. So we'll start off with benefits of maximizing your relationships with trade partners. So for anybody on this webinar today that has heard some of our webinars with manufacturers, whether it's been promoting relationships with manufacturers, whether it's promoting new manufacturers in our Builder Partnerships program, you may recognize some of these slides. These first few slides, there's a lot of overlap between whether you're talking to a manufacturer or you're talking to a trade partner, because there are a few things that are different, but a lot of the things are the same benefits. So when we talk about goals or benefits of having these strong relationships, one is better cost control. If we're communicating with our trades and we're talking to them and keeping an open line of communication with them all the time, we're going to know what products we should be using. We're going to know where their pain points are, maybe field related issues with schedule. And all of those things ultimately will lead to better cost control for us as the builder. In turn, higher profits, but not just because of those pain points and those types of things, but those communications will also tend to lead to better ways to what options should we be selling? What are the proper margins on those options? How should we be selling them? And all of that in turn will also lead to higher profits, not just the better cost control. Better understanding of market trends. So when we do talk about this with the manufacturer, we say, oh, talk to manufacturer reps about market trends because they're the experts in that product and what's selling globally, nationally, regionally, whatever it might be. Well, the same thing applies to trade partners. They're the experts in that category. And while depending on the size of the trade partner, they may not be more than a regional trade, but they're going to know what other builders are doing in your market. They're going to know what other buyers are purchasing. They're going to know other trends that are going on, and make sure you're communicating with them about those things. Faster warranty resolution. Um, do we want to be building a relationship with anybody, manufacturer, trade partner, somebody within a company when there's a problem and there's already tensions built? Or do we want to have this existing relationship that we're comfortable with, that we know who to talk to? And when something comes up like a warranty problem, we can resolve it quicker. We're not trying to find out who the person is to talk to and how to resolve it. We talk to our contact that we already have that relationship with. Faster response to unexpected issues. COVID-19, perfect example, material defects, types of things like that, that there's no way we could have planned that we'd be experiencing what we experienced over the last year. We have to adapt to those things, but how do we get a faster response to these unexpected issues? It's having these relationships, having strong relationships with our trade partners. The title of this webinar was about to increase efficiency and profitability. That's exactly where that comes from. The more efficient we can be, the more strategic we can be with what we're doing with these relationships, the more profitable we're going to be as a company. So first of all, let's talk about knowing your product. We can't talk about building the relationship with our trade partners without knowing what we're going to require of them. So let's know our product. Let's know what we're doing. So the product line material specs, this is an example of a sheet for a move-up buyer and a luxury buyer within a builder group. This is a sample of a form that you would give to your architect, to your designers, anybody in-house before a new community starts up. And to give some examples of it, if you look down through the move-up category and the luxury category, We'll just do like garage and first floor walls. In the move up, it's representing a 2-car garage, where in a luxury, it's representing a 2.5-car garage. In a first floor walls, is 9 foot versus 10 foot. Further down, you see windows, vinyl single hung for the move up, vinyl double hung in a color, like maybe it's a black exterior, for the luxury line. This is an example where we're not to the point yet that we have set specifications. We're not telling them it's an Anderson window or an MI window, anything along those lines, but we're saying internally, this is what we're going to spec out from a type of product on these product lines coming up. This is a starting point. This is us knowing our product from the beginning, making sure we have this. From there, it's going to turn into a detailed specs for bidding. So this is an example from a builder that I had worked with that it's their electrical category. Now, once we go through the process of working with the architect, working with the design team to figure out, what the home's going to look like, and we have these overall specifications of what type of double hung or single hung window or heights of the walls, now we're working down to the detailed specifications for bidding that the trades are going to get. We want these to be as accurate, as detailed as possible. So I took the snapshot of an electrical category because this is exactly what we would look at if we were doing a consulting assignment or working with somebody. And, it had kind of a really nice mix of good and bad. One is the service panel. It says on here 200 amp service by Siemens or approved equal. So I highlighted the or approved equal and said remove. A lot of builders will do or approved equal or approved equivalent, whatever you want to term it. But we want to be in control of what's going into the home. We want, whether we're submitting for rebates or putting model home programs in, whatever it is, we want to be in control of that. So when it comes to specification sheets, let's make sure we get rid of the or approved equal. We want that communication with our trade partners, but we want them to have to come to us and say, hey, I have another electrical service panel that I think would be a better choice for this job site. Here's my reasons why. And as a team, you make that with that relationship, you make that decision whether to change or not. When you have the or approved equal, you're always leaving it up in the air. Like, I'm always willing to look at something different. I'm willing to have something different in every job site. Or somebody can have confusion, say, I thought you approved it. I told you about it. I thought you approved it. We lose control. So try to not have that wherever possible. In the switches part, it says Decora versus what would be toggle switches. Okay. It says white. Okay. But there's no manufacturer. So, maybe put a manufacturer there. The fixture package I thought was perfect. In this case, it was Kichler lighting, but it's Kichler lighting package. And it says all the different room locations, the model numbers, the color finishes, and you can even see in areas like the foyer, it has a 1-story condition and 2-story condition, totally different model numbers, still the nickel finish. And then finally, when you get to bath fans, standard fan light combo on a separate switch. Okay, that's fairly common for a lot of people to list, but what's the manufacturer? What's the model number? Is it Brown-Newtone in a certain model number? Let's be as specific as possible, like the Kichler lighting package category. I just thought this was a perfect snapshot that kind of showed, what I considered almost perfect and some of the areas that we can improve upon. Um, you know, we can build a strong relationship with our trade partners and our manufacturers to the extent that we know what we're putting into our homes and we can maintain a certain type of quality, a certain kind of standard, our price points. So this is really important to understand that we have a good detailed bid specification sheet to start that trade partner relationship. So continuing knowing your product, do you have a product development team? Typically, this is led by the purchasing department, but it doesn't have to be, but typically it is. The team should include design, sales, marketing, estimating, construction. Maybe you have another team or two that's part of it. It's not the whole team, it's just a representative from each department, different sets of eyes looking at what's going on. Periodically mix up the attendees from each department to have fresh perspectives. We all know there's different individuals, construction, sales, design, that's the tough person to deal with. And there's also the person that's a lot easier to deal with. We want those different perspectives in this meeting. So, you put this meeting together, you hold it either monthly or quarterly or whatever you choose, and you're constantly refining your product, your new homes coming out, the products you're using. Discuss current product quality. You'd be surprised at how often construction feels totally different than sales or design or purchasing. There may be a faucet that purchasing specking out that construction says always leaks. That purchasing thought was fine. There may be a faucet that design loves to sell. It's a beautiful looking fixture and the buyers love it, but construction says it's a nightmare to install. Um, you know, have the part of that is what's the current product quality? What are the current product difficulties? Discuss what's selling. What's the top and bottom 10% of your option sales? So when you review this, you're not only looking at the bottom 10% to understand why is it the bottom 10%? Is it a dead option? We shouldn't sell it anymore. We should remove it from the system. Is it an option that we double budgeted something like lumber? So when we're putting our margin on it, it's way too high, so nobody's buying it. Is our margin just too high? And vice versa, when it's the top 10%, why is it the top 10%? Again, do we not budget something in? So when we put our margin on top of it, we're selling it too cheap. Is our margin too low? So everybody's taking advantage of it. Buyers are smart. They'll see that kind of thing. Or if everything is right and we're just selling a lot of it, what are we missing? What other options similar to that should we be adding to the system because it's a hot area right now? Let's constantly look at those things, know our products, and then in turn, this is going to help us with our communication to our trade partners because we internally have a better understanding of what we're building and what options we're selling. And that ties into the upgrade paths too. Are we selling, what are our upgrade paths from granite, from faucets, from flooring? How are we selling them to a level 1, level 2, level 3, and so forth? So we've talked about knowing your product. So first step of strong trade partner relationships is knowing what we're doing and how we're doing it. But now let's talk about knowing your trade partners. Schedule meetings with your trade partners. Yeah, we have toolbox talk meetings or safety meetings, those types of things periodically. But what are you doing internally from like a purchasing department to meet on a regular basis with your trade partners? Have a set agenda and send it out in advance. This is the case for everything, any type of meeting internally within your company, manufacturers, with trade partners. Having a set agenda is going to make you that much more efficient during your meeting. Nobody wants to sit down and have a meeting and end up coming back later and talking about, well, I wrote all these notes down. I'll come back to you in a week from now. We'll get answers. If you send out an agenda in advance, you can come in hopefully with the answers at the meeting and kind of work through a set routine and get into that process. Your trade partners are extremely valuable in getting information such as upcoming product changes, what's selling and not selling for your company and others that they work for, and proper upgrade paths. Those three things are all things we talked about in the last category when we're talking about knowing your product. But keep in mind, they're the experts. Your plumbers, your electricians, your flooring companies. We need to know a little bit about everything as a builder, but they're the experts, and we want to tap into that knowledge, and that directly is why having a strong relationship with your trade partners makes us more efficient, makes us more profitable. They're the experts, and we have to remember that. So when we talk about these meetings, this was a kind of a last minute addition to this slide deck. We tend to talk about this a lot in our leadership classes. And when we talk about listening, there's multiple stages of listening. There's ignoring, there's pretend listening, there's selective listening, there's attentive listening, empathetic listening. It's important to understand those. We talk about them a lot in life, like any of us with kids or spouses or coworkers, we could say, my kids, selectively listen to me, or, they pretend listen to me. We understand what those things mean, but apply it to your meetings in real life, whether it's meeting with a trade partner, whether it's meeting with a manufacturer. Am I really listening to them? So when we talk about really listening, if you look at the photo next to it, it says most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And if we're really honest about it, that's a really, really great comment, because we do. How often are you in a meeting with, let's keep it in context of the trade partner. You're in a meeting with a trade partner, and when you're meeting with them, they're asking you a question or talking about a problem they have, and all you're doing is thinking about what your response is going to be, why it's not a problem, or what your alternative is. It's okay to have a pause at the end of a question. you know, Give them the time to ask you. You listen attentively or empathetically with what their problem is, why they're struggling in the field, and give them an honest answer instead of sitting there thinking about how you're going to reply the whole time and maybe not truly listening to them. So I thought it was a really good slide to put in there when we talk about having these meetings. It ties really well to having a set agenda and just different ways to be more efficient when we're dealing with anybody, not just our trade partners. So when we talk about some of the discussion points to have in these meetings, some of these overlap with what we talk about with manufacturers, but price apps, it's always one of the first things we talk about, typically seen as the only thing that matters, although total cost is much more important than just price. By total cost, we mean the total cost to the company of everything that goes into play: quality, service, warranty, whatever it might be. You have to look at the total picture, the big picture, but price is absolutely something you should talk about. Delivery arrangements. Where's the product going? These are all things that are going to make, how are we going to make our life more efficient with our trade partners? Well, how's their material coming out? Are they supplying it? Is it coming from a supplier that is coming a day prior to them working? Is it a material that's being delivered in front of the house, in the garage of the house, to the job trailer? These things that we need to talk about, understand it, and understand how that can impact how efficient they are. Are they going to another part of the job site to get their material, coming back, they're running short? Let's figure this out with them. Let's be a team. Model home program and design center change out, design center displays. A lot of times we always think about this with manufacturers directly, like, oh, I want to talk to my manufacturer about the model home program. Well, our trade partners are the ones usually installing the products and doing this work. You know, make sure you're always keeping part of this communication, and this is done in advance, part of your contracting process. You know, what are we doing to get a discount on our model homes or our design centers? Do we get one for free? I always shoot for free first, but do we get one for free out of every 50 homes built in a community, or some version of something like that? Or do we get 50% off our labor? Whatever it is, let's negotiate that up front, because they have a fairly large portion of the cost typically, as well as just getting a free product from the manufacturer and having them help you with that. Design center displays. Again, we think a lot of times about a manufacturer giving us a design center display, but how often do we work with our trimmers to do custom trim display, or custom shelving for a certain type of product that's out there? This all comes back to the trade partners as well. So these should definitely be part of the trade partner discussion. We say a lot of times these are envelopes or buckets that are always there, that we should always have a list of. So whenever we have these meetings, we talk about these things. Warranty parts and service assistance. How can they help us with common problems? Training for teams, whether it's your sales team, your superintendents, your trades, your back office. Again, let's get out of the mindset it's always your manufacturer reps, that they're important and you absolutely should be talking to them. But for your trade partners, and you see this a lot with like low voltage companies. When you have the low voltage companies come out, they love to talk to your sales team and your designers about how options can be sold for speaker upgrades and integrated like lighting systems and different things along those lines. I had a builder I was working with that we were working in a job site that every single house in that job site had had skylights in it. And I would always say there was nothing about that job site that meant that the buyers there wanted skylights. It was all about that they were properly trained on selling skylights, what the benefits, what the features were, and they sold them like crazy. Keep that in mind. Have these experts, these trade partners, work with your team and help train them on why these products are good, why these upgrades are good, and you'll find that it'll in turn increase your sales tremendously. There's a whole lot of profitability that can come from that. Price locks and quantity discounts are obviously good discussion points. Payment discounts. Do you offer a quick pay? Let's communicate that to trades. That can make their life a whole lot easier. Again, they're a trade partner. We're partners in this. So how can we make their life easier and our life easier and keep that relationship strong? Marketing donations and for promotions. This a lot of times, we do a promotion. I know we're not really in the market that we need to do crazy promotions to increase sales pace, but whatever your marketing promotion is, if you're doing an upgraded kitchen promotion, talk to your trade partners. Hey, for the next week, we're going to do a promotion where we're giving away an upgrade to a level 2 granite and upgraded appliances if somebody signs a contract this week. Well, maybe they'll give you a discount on that. So it has more of a perceived value, but it saves us money as a company because it's going to give them more work too as a trade partner. Let's talk about those things. And then extended warranties. So there's more than just these categories, but these are some of the top discussion points that I would always have, those buckets or envelopes, as I said, that I would always have to talk about, whether you're dealing with a trade partner or a manufacturer. Let's talk about these things. These are part of those meetings. So now we've gone through, you know, why strong relationships with your trade partners is important. We've talked about we need to understand our product and what we're selling and why that's important. And we've talked about how we should be meeting with these trade partners and the things we should be talking about. Now, moving off of that a little bit and talk a little bit about recruiting and onboarding, I think this is a category from all of our seminars that we do that I think sometimes we don't focus on enough. We know we do it, but we don't really focus on what's our process, what's our procedure. So recruiting and onboarding, production can play a key role in recruiting and qualifying trades. Tour competitor job sites to find trades that you'd want to work on your job. Clean vehicles, clean job sites, quality workmanship. It's amazing how much of that you can see just by driving through a site and seeing how those trades are doing. And it's not like you have to go and inconvenience that trade or interfere with work being done for another builder. You can easily just take a picture with your phone of their trucks, because usually their trucks or their vans have all the contact information on it if it's a builder, a trade partner you're interested in. Ask building inspectors and other trades about who does good work. Building inspectors are a great resource. If you have an inspector that's willing to give you recommendations, there's nobody that a building inspector is going to recommend, from a framer, a plumber, electrician, that they're going to recommend that they think is going to fail inspections all the time and cause their life to be more difficult. So, are you talking to your building inspectors? Are you talking to other trades who they would recommend, who they like to work with? Can go a long way. And then finally, purchasing and production management should constantly discuss, what trades are necessary and where the weak spots are in the bench that needs to be deepened. So we talk about this term vendor bench all the time, in purchasing and production, but it's beyond just talking about it and saying, here's my vendor bench. Do you have it documented? Do you have a spreadsheet somewhere? Do you have some kind of form somewhere that allows you to track every trade category and know, here's my primary and here's my backup, number 2, number 3, number 4? Yes, we're all going to have some categories that we have one vendor that seems to do every job site and is the primary vendor. But what happens when the emergency comes into play? Something goes on, like we're dealing with it the last year, and all of a sudden we lose that trade partner, and we need more vendors. We need to know we have a vendor bench. So we should always be looking, where are our weak spots? Where do we not have enough backups? And let's work on that as a team to recruit in the proper areas. Focus your time on the low hanging fruit, right? So part of this process of recruiting and onboarding starts with networking. You have your home builder association. I'm very active for the last 10 plus years. I've been on all different levels of the home builders association, from the executive board, vice president, treasurer, the regular board of directors. I like to volunteer and enjoy that networking that we get at that opportunity, whether it's a meet the builder event, whether it's just a board meeting and you're talking to other associates. It's a great opportunity to network. Trades that work after a prospective trade. It's one we don't always think of either, but think about if, let's pick an example of drywall, right? So you need a new drywall vendor. Talk to your painters and ask your painters there after that trade, are there any drywallers that they work with that they would recommend? We're looking for some additional vendors for our bench or to replace a job site. You're talking to somebody that's directly affected by the quality and workmanship of that trade. A painter's paint finish is going to be directly affected by how good the drywall finish is. So they're much more likely to recommend somebody that may work out for you. They're not always going to know price points or some of those other details that you're looking for, but it's, again, you're recruiting. You're not at that point yet. You're just recruiting. Suppliers, electrically, or plumbing, you want to go to a supply house. They're going to know all the electricians, all the plumbers that are coming in there all the time buying material. Maybe there's that diamond in the rough that you never even knew the company's name, but the supply house is telling you to do lots of work in your area. Talk to the suppliers, talk to other builders, other purchasing managers, superintendents, building inspectors, like we said. These are all resources to network, become part of builder groups. Emma Jane's at a builder group right now. Become part of builder groups where you can talk about these things, problems people are having. It all ties back to better ways to recruit, onboard, process, procedure related. It goes a long way. So now that you've networked, we need to qualify and vet vendors. This is beyond just price, as we talked about. There's so many other factors. Establish the qualities that are of a good trade partner for you as a builder. What's important to you? Is it really, really important to you that they, the customer service they give when there's a warranty problem? Is it really important to you about the schedule and that they're always on time, the number of crews they have? Figure out what those things are. And a little bit later, I'll talk about how we can track and rate that and make sure we have a strong vendor. We have the vendor application process, which has all the pertinent info, or should have all the pertinent information on it that we need to collect. It should be available online if at all possible. One thing we talk a lot about is the purchasing department, who's usually responsible for this, even if you have production as part of the process too, is always getting overwhelmed, especially right now with all kinds of things. And you don't want these emails, voicemails to get lost. So, have the form available online that it can channel to one, like info@purchasing email. Have a phone number that's specific for new trades coming in, that when you have the time to go through it, they're all in one place. You're not going through old emails and so forth. It should include reference checking, financial soundness, safety record, ability to meet schedules demands. These are all basic things that, what's important to us. What do we need to verify? So an example of this new subcontractor checklist that I've used in the past. This is, this could be online. It could be just filled out and left in the vendor file when you move forward. But you can see at the top here, it has the company name, address, phone numbers, and primary and secondary contacts, tax ID, and vendor type. Vendor type is important too, because you'd be surprised how many times you talk to like an HVAC vendor and don't realize they also do plumbing and electric, or they might have overlapping trades that they do that you just weren't aware of. So we always want to collect that. Areas they're willing to travel for work, trades and materials supplied, and then vendor loading. So whatever you want to call it, vendor capacity, vendor loading, how many jobs per month can they complete? How many crews do they have? Whatever version of that vendor capacity you want to go through, let's collect that right up front. And then it gets more into the checklist portion. Proof of insurance, W-9, checked references, and it has reference 1 through 4. Obviously on here, there's not a whole lot of room for comments, but if it's an online forum, it would obviously expand. You know, a lot of people take references with a grain of salt, because who's going to give you a bad reference? But at the same time, if you're a bad trade, do they have the ability to give you 2 or 3 or 4 good references that we know are comparable to what we want? Like, they work with a builder that's a certain size, certain type of product line. Maybe we know some contacts at that builder. Those references are important to us, so we always still want to collect it. And finally, on stage 2 there, it ties into the subcontractor and supplier list. Did we give them the bid set, the plans? Did we give them master specification sheets, scopes of work, their master agreement, and so forth? There's going to be many more things, but this is a perfect example of collect as much info as you can online or up in advance, and then also use it as a checklist to make sure that you're following your proper process and procedure to communicate with your trade, and make sure you have all the documentation, these accountability documents, we call them. Um, Step 3 is training prospective trades. What's your process? So, ECI is sponsoring today's program. I've used marks with a lot of builders where, part of our training program is the ITK interface, the Internet Toolkit, which is their online portal. So when we use ITK, I'd bring in trades and do an ITK training. Here's how you access all your information. Let's talk about schedule. Let's talk about your scope of work that you signed. All these different things, production team and contact information, pay cycles and process, how you can look on that database, what you're going to get paid when, or what past checks were, purchase order and payment process, insurance requirements, safety program. What is your process? How are you training on all these things? The purchase order and payment process, I would always be very blunt during these meetings and say, look, I want to set the proper expectations up front. But when you're working with us, if you don't have a PO or work order that's correct for what you're going to do, you don't do the work unless it's been updated or you have a VPO, because otherwise, if you come to me later with an invoice, you're not going to get paid for it. You did the work for free. And that's the type of communication that when handled the right way, is appreciated. So it's all about communication with your trade partners and making sure that they understand you're telling them this stuff to benefit them, because you don't want to have a problem down the road. So we're going through, what is this training process? Are they signing off on it when they're done? Figuring that out is important. It's an important part of your company's process. We talked about the bid package and what we call the accountability documents. This is how we hold our trades accountable. There's a long list here. It's parts list, volume analysis. It could be complete working drawings, specifications, construction techniques, structural options, scopes of work, your quality standards, work rules. Every job site can have different work rules, or regions can have different work rules. Scheduling procedures, what's your process for processing VPOs, purchase orders, and just payments in general. Do we do a quick pay? Is it everything approved by a certain day of the month is paid at a certain day? All those things are those expectations that we want to get out right at the beginning, during the contracting, during the recruiting and onboarding, just so there's no issues down the road. This all ties directly to how we can build a strong trade partner relationship. And then keep in mind, it's a formal process. Typically you have 5 steps. You have the solicitation period, which is no standing with the company at all. You have the prospect, which has an application and qualification, so like filled out that form that I showed you. You have the approved bidder, which, at that point we've gone through negotiating and pricing, and we know, okay, you're in the ballpark. You're on our bench now. You're number 3 on our bench or number 2 on our bench, whatever it might be, or maybe we're even awarding you, but you're now an approved bidder. And then we have the probationary trade, which never put a trade out right away and award them. I mean, there's sometimes desperate measures, but we typically never want to put them out and say, okay, now you just got a job site with 250 homes in it. They should always do some test work. Make sure, we've gone through and we've checked your references, we've approved your pricing, but now let's give you a couple test lots and make sure everything looks like the way we expect it to look before we give you a whole job site. And then finally, they're the qualified trade. They can receive POs and work orders. They can, work anywhere we assign them, and they've made it through the whole process. So now that we've gone through the recruiting, so we've talked why it's important. We've talked about some of the things we need to know internally to make it an efficient relationship and profitable relationship. We've talked about the recruiting and onboarding. But now that we've recruited them and onboarded them and they're on our bench, how do we assign these trades? We want to have a strategic approach to assigning. Single sourcing versus competitive bidding. Very rarely do we want to do competitive bidding, or very rarely do we want to do single sourcing. We always want to focus on competitive bidding, that is. Single sourcing at times can seem beneficial until that single source disappears and we don't have any replacements lined up and ready to go. So let's make sure we have competitive bidding, we have a proper vendor bench, and wherever possible, we follow the 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rule is no one has more than 80% of the work and no one has less than 20% of the work. It can be difficult at times, but there's all sorts of ways to accomplish this. If you're doing a townhome community and you assign a painter or a drywaller, the end units, and you assign somebody else all the interior units. Vice versa, if you have a single family community and there's, the proportions of lots that can handle a certain type of model, you can award one trade. You do all of this model and the other trade does all the other models. There's ways you can get pretty close to this 80-20 rule, which always benefits us. It keeps everybody honest. It keeps people knowing that there's opportunity there. For the vendor, that's the 20%. Usually it alleviates the whole idea of sport bidding as well. We say sport bidding by a lot of times we'll bid out somebody that's on our bench and we price them up, and they're always right there, but they're never good enough to get all the work. Eventually what happens is it's just considered sport bidding, where they think there's never an opportunity to get the work, and either their pricing is going to creep up and eventually they're going to price themselves out of the ballpark because they're not taking the time to bid it effectively, or you're just always going to be the bottom priority. So if you eventually do need them and they're really busy, they're not going to work for you. So having that 20% also helps avoid that sport bidding effect. And finally, sacred cows. We bring this up because understand that they can exist with your trade partners, where internally within your companies, sometimes, and usually these are the trade partners that have been around since the beginning, and everybody seems to think that they have a strong relationship with the owners of the company. 95% of the time, that's not the case. And just be aware of who's out there that we might consider a sacred cow, and address that internally, because it affects your trade partner relationships significantly if everybody's afraid to have open communication with that person, or if they're all afraid to bring somebody else in. That hurts us as a company. So one thing to do during trade assignments is utilize the production team to provide feedback to track the scores of how the situation on the ground is panning out. So talked about it earlier about how you'd be surprised how often purchasing, design, sales, construction all looks at things differently. This is a case where you can do, and I've had a bunch of classes that we've taught that different students in them have asked to see a copy of this because it's so simple but so strong, so powerful. This case, it shows plumbing, where it shows trades 1 through 4. And then for this builder, they said, okay, safety, quality, service, cost, capacity, and loyalty are all important to us, these 6 items. Each one gets rated out of 10, and you have your total score. Well, if you have production do this and you have purchasing do this, you'd be surprised sometimes how different they could be. But it also is a very tangible, it's a thought out there. There's a logic behind how we're targeting certain trades. We are awarding trade number 1 because they're clearly the highest scoring plumber of all the categories that are important to us. Category 4 is the lowest. But then you can also go through and, part of a trade partner relationship is how can we help them improve? How can we help them improve so we can, as a team, be stronger in the future? Well, okay, if it was trade partner number 4, I'm looking at cost. Well, cost is definitely an issue. If I'm looking at trade partner number 3, they're clearly having a service issue. Let me talk to them and say, look, all of our other trades are ranking higher than you on service. Where's our disconnect? What can we help you with to improve that? So this is how we strengthen our trade partner relationships and also have a legitimate, tangible way that as a company, we can all be on the same page and not have purchasing making decisions in a vacuum or production making decisions in a vacuum. And finally, last few slides here are maintaining the relationship. Purchasing and back office needs to be aware of issues that are occurring in the field, just like with that tracking that we were showing you there. Understand what safety issues are going on, schedule failures, not following scopes of work. Why aren't they following? Do we not train on it properly? Do we not review it properly? And attitude issues. They're all important. How can we track that and help talk about these during those trade partner meetings? The trade partner meetings are useless if we do it just to do it, and it's kind of like a useless conversation. Let's have this data ready to go and talk about where we're struggling, where we're improving, where they can help us. Advance what you can control. A well-managed job sites, eliminating dry runs, few fill-in orders, paying on time. Bottom line is becoming the builder of choice. So for those of you who listen to other webinars, other seminars, builder of choice is something we talk about all the time. It's literally a whole class. It's a whole seminar where we can talk about just what a builder of choice is. But the bottom line for a builder of choice is being the builder in your market that everybody wants to work for. We talk about labor shortages and the struggles there. Well, the labor shortages, none of us should have them, because we want to be the builder that everybody wants to work for, and we want somebody else to have the shortage, not us. So, things like dry runs and fill-in orders, not paying on time, are a way that trades can hate working for you. If they're going to a job site and having a dry run, the job site's not ready, or they come in and only a third of the materials ordered in there, it makes them not profitable. And in turn, they don't want to focus on your work. They'll focus on somebody's work that they are profitable for. So when we're maintaining the relationship, advance all the things you control. Build that relationship and become the builder of choice for your trades. And finally, handling price increases. I debated on removing this today just because of the nature of our pricing environment right now. But I made the comment on here that it's very different today, but the process still needs to be maintained. What's the plan to get back to normal? Start thinking about, how are we going to get back to normal as prices come down, which they will. I mean, we don't know the time frames or supply shortages, but they will come down. What's our plan to get our savings back? And what's our process when things are normal? Right now, maybe we can't do all these things, but do we require 45 to 60 days advance notice? Do we release purchase orders at current price? We've already sold those homes. How's that set up in our contract? Do we document in the vendor contract? Do we make sure that we're expiring contracts and loading new, so we always have that history, the tracking of, okay, we increased the contract 10% on this date, and then 2 months later we increased it another 15%, and now we're ready to decrease it. It keeps everything nice and straightforward. Make sure it's documented. And then finally, any effect of pricing will affect the value of the scorecard. So that scorecard we just looked at, I always, no matter what the market's doing, always tell trades, as soon as you ask for a price increase, you're risking losing the work. It's not a threat, but part of my job, part of our due diligence, is to go through and review that you're still within market price. So regardless of right now, when everybody's asking for increases, or a time when people aren't asking for increases, they always need to know that I'm still going to double check you against everybody else. Your price may have gone up 30%, but did everybody else's only go up 15%? I'm going to find that out before I validate this. So make sure, it's tough right now, but make sure this is always part of your communication with them. It's keeping that trade partner communication open, honest, everybody's on the same page. So I hope everybody found that helpful. It's a lot of information in a short period of time there, but we do also offer our next class coming up, actually next Tuesday. Ed Houck and myself teach purchasing classes. We just got done 101 and 201. 301 comes up next week starting on Tuesday. And this is part of the category that we talked a little bit more in depth about. But it's, if there's any questions, now's the time to ask. I don't know if Emma Jane, if anything had come up.
At this point, I moved to outside, so hopefully it's not as loud outside as it was inside. At this point, we don't have anybody who's listed a question in the Q&A, but we do have kind of a smaller group today. So if you're up for it, I could allow people to raise hands, and if they want to ask a question live, we certainly have the ability to do that today. Are you good with that?
Yep. Yeah. If anybody has a question,
So if
absolutely.
anybody has, yeah, if anybody has a question, we'll go ahead and, oh, we do have a question in the chat. It's from Jordan. He asks if you are seeing any issues with labor compared to material.
So that's a good question. Honestly, it's one of those things that every builder that we work with, labor and material are an issue, both sides. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of differences in terms of that they're both an issue or one's not an issue. The biggest problem that we see is when you're negotiating with the trades or when you're dealing with the trades, making sure that they're separating them out, right? So if they are having just a material issue and they're asking for a 15% increase, make sure you specify where's that increase affecting and you want to see that. I don't want to see them put a 15% increase on the whole contract. Obviously, you're overinflating that number. Also, sometimes I just dealt with an HVAC company that was having significant increases on their sheet metal for all their ductwork. Well, even in that case, I need to know the specific material that was going up. So I wasn't applying it to I wasn't applying it to the whole category. I wasn't applying it to their condensing units and so forth. So, when it comes to the two, both are issues right now. Just make sure part of that communication is understanding where they're separated and really deep diving into where the increases are coming from.
Thank you. We have another question, and I'm going to allow Brian to talk, but I'll go ahead and read your question out loud. And if you have follow-up questions to that, we can go ahead and ask. If you have any tips on being a good, valuable partner with builders that helps them be more efficient when your product is actually going to them through a distributor?
That's a good question. So, I think regardless of it going through a distributor, it's, maybe it's down the line too. Like the distributor knows who the products are going to. So if you're a manufacturer and your distributor is giving a lot of product to, an electrician or a plumber, it's following it down the line and making sure you're giving the actual trade partner the resources they need to help that builder. I've had many contacts with builders where they're like, I was talking to my distributor and they think this manufacturer would be a perfect opportunity for you to start working with. The product meets what your buyers are looking for. They have great marketing material. Your bottom line goal is how do you get access to that builder or that trade partner to make sure they understand the services, the benefits that you can provide. So, even if you're not talking to the builder directly, there's absolutely ways to get in touch with that trade partner one way or another and help them have the resources during those meetings that they're hopefully having with their builder. Or also with builder partnerships. We obviously offer a lot of opportunities with builder partnerships to get manufacturers in front of the builders directly, and in turn they can have the conversation with their builders and their trade partners.
Did that answer your question, Brian, or did you have a follow-up question to that?
No, yes, it definitely answered the question. I think the challenge that probably some of us have in the manufacturing realm is we don't always control the service that a distributor may give a builder. So being a good partner to a builder is definitely valuable to us, but it's hard to monitor the distributor's level of service. But that does answer the question, though. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Brian, that's, you notice at the beginning of this meeting or the webinar, I said multiple times about how it was interchangeable between some of those topics of how keeping a strong builder relationship or a trade partner relationship and a strong manufacturer relationship are similar. Yep. So I think from your standpoint, even if you have trade partners that are dealing directly with the builder, you're in one of those positions where you're a builder partnership manufacturer and you have the opportunity to get in front of as many builders as you can and ask them where you can help them. Maybe they'll bring up a problem with the distributor or a trade partner that really is making the manufacturer look bad, and you can actually help them improve that because it has nothing to do with the manufacturer. So anybody working with builder partnerships, you have an advantage right away because we can get direct access to those builders.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Brian.
We also have Jillian. Jillian, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, I've allowed you to talk if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question live. You need to make sure you unmute yourself. All right. Well, while we wait, I'm going to go ahead. We'll just go through these slides. Oh, wait, there's one more question here. Let me look here. Oh, her audio. The audio doesn't work on the computer. Do you want to go ahead and type in your question? I'll read it out loud for you. All right, while we're waiting for that, I'm just going to go through this slide real quickly. So Builder Partnerships offers a number of services for you, ranging from our webinars that we offer on a regular basis that do, we do try to provide you with as much educational material as possible so that you're always growing and learning and becoming the best possible builders. I know we just recently did a workshop on Builder of Choice, and our goal as an organization is to help you guys reach that goal through our services. We offer rebates through Builder Partnerships. We partner with so many different manufacturers and have a number of programs that I'm sure you can find at least one that will satisfy your needs and help you bring in a little bit of extra money into your organization. We offer training online and live courses. You're obviously attending one of our webinars today, but we offer a number of trainings on-demand trainings, such as our weekly trainings. We have our workshops that we're offering. They're 4-hour workshops that are available to you. And then we also have our online seminars that are 2 4-hour sessions. And then we also have our live seminars. We have Managing for Profit and Superintendent that will be coming up in September in New Orleans. We've already started taking registrations for that. So if you are looking for that, you want to make sure you go ahead and get registered for that quickly, because we do limit registrations on our live seminars as well. Julian asked, have you conducted trade meetings over Zoom? If so, is it effective?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I would say a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, they weren't very effective, right? Because most people would be, Zoom existed, all these different options existed, but people were afraid of them. I think COVID over the last year has gotten us all very comfortable with this format, whether it's webinars, whether it's doing meetings this way. I have worked with trade meetings with several builders that we work with here at Builder Partnerships and Shin Consulting, through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams, whatever it might be, and you'd be surprised at how much more comfortable they are. So that's a great point, is that if you can't meet face to face, these meetings don't have to be long. They just need to be efficient. So make sure you have the agenda set up in advance, have them in person if you need to, tie it to a day that you're at a job site if you need to. I used to love having the meetings on a job site. I'd find a job site that was like ton of activity, nice design center, and like kind of give that wow factor, especially when there were a trade that wasn't already working there. But Zoom can be absolutely just as efficient with probably a majority of your trades, just by nature of they're used to it at this point. So definitely try to utilize the technology if you can. And Emma Jane, don't get hit by a flying umbrella.
Oh, so fun. That's not the first time that's happened. I hope you were all entertained for just a few minutes there. Oh, well, I think we don't have any more questions, but Rick will kind of run through the slides. I want to thank all of you guys so much for coming and supporting our webinar Wednesdays. It looks like we are going to take a little time off during the summer while all you guys are really super busy building homes and trying to get some vacation squeezed in there as well. We might have a webinar or two pop up on Wednesdays from time to time over the summertime, but it looks like we're going to postpone webinars until the first part of September, just to give you guys some time to get caught up. If you have any questions or need anything or have any topics that are at the top of your mind that you're like, we need to get some training on this, reach out to us. We're always willing to provide the services that you guys are looking for. Keep an eye out for our next set of trainings that are coming out. We have Purchasing 301 and then production, then negotiating will be in July, and then we'll start up with production management again in August, September, and October. So we look forward to seeing you guys again. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.